Hello, Aurora. How are you doing today?
Awesome, Ash. I look forward to this podcast and helping people turn their words into wealth.
Great stuff. Well, by the way, thank you so much for sending me your book. I'm halfway through and I'm enjoying it so much. So yeah, thank you so much for sending it out.
You're welcome. Yep, here's the book, and
There
I'm
you
going to
go.
give you a quote
For
from it.
for people, we both are showing the book so that they know that it's both sides. Great stuff. So Aurora, before we start, do you have a favorite quote, something that motivates you, inspires you, you would like to share with our audience?
Absolutely. It's this quote by Jordan Peterson said, "If you can read and think and communicate, you are absolutely 100% unstoppable.
Mm,
There is nothing more economically valuable than teaching people how to communicate." And I love to share that with your founders because I think it's so easy as a founder to get all caught up in the product and the service and the coding and to forget about communicating powerfully. And
mm.
that's where the real money is. When you can communicate powerfully about what you're up to, you get funding, you get clients, you get joint venture partners. Every door opens.
Mm, indeed, indeed, and couldn't agree more with you on this one because no matter how good your product is, no matter how good your services is, if you don't have customers, you can't survive, isn't it?
Exactly
So
right.
it's spot on. Great.
Yeah.
So Aurora, let's do something different today then. Let's imagine that we are in a room full of ambitious founders, early stage builders. You are there, you're on the stage, you have the mic. People are looking at you. Who is this lady on the stage? No one knows your name. They haven't, been following you anywhere. And you've got few minutes to tell them your story so that they can stick with you for the rest 1 hour. What would you tell them?
What I would share is I love founders. I think founders and entrepreneurs are changing the world. And you may not know this, but you're sabotaging your success because you're missing just one thing. And the data shows that if you can tell a compelling story, you can increase your income, not by double, not by quadruple, not even by 10x, by 27x. An X. So I think it's worth listening to me for a little bit longer to learn the keys of storytelling and to turn your words into wealth. Every single founder I have helped raise capital has gone from raising 0 to 7 or 8 figures or more. So
Mm.
hang with us and we'll get into the secrets that you can use right away to accelerate and increase your income and your impact.
Definitely, definitely. And as I mentioned when we were starting, I'm halfway through your book, which is Turn Your Words into Wealth. I read through it, and then you shared some very intriguing and inspiring use cases or stories in the book. About one was about your brother, and one was about a founder you helped who was not doing that great when he came to you. Would you be possibly able to share that story with our listeners and throw some light on it? Like, what was the nitty-gritties you help him out to actually achieve the success?
Okay, that was a great story. I think you're talking about the founder that I helped. His name is Tarny Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And when he first came to one of my $1 Million Message events, what I do is I invite people to come up to the front of the room and share what they're up to. And then the audience kind of lets them know if they understood or not. And then we continue training. So he came up at the beginning before the training had started and he explained to people what he was up to. And the audience was like, well, we know he's super smart. We know he's super passionate, but we have no idea what he's actually doing. Because like most founders, he's so in the middle of it that he was like starting at step 14.
Hmm.
And then we did the media training. I explained and we practiced in a small group how to deliver the message, because I call that your $1 million message because it can unlock those $1 million. And he came up at the end of the event, said what he was up to. And people in the audience were so excited about it and so clear that they invested on the spot. So
Wow.
that just took a bit of training and a bit of practice to go from, wow, we really like you, but we have no clue what you're doing, to, hey,
Hmm.
we like you and we understand what you're up to and we're so excited about it, we're going to invest. And he went on to raise 8 figures, not in
Wow.
that day, but, over
Yeah.
the course
I
of
mean,
time. So
It
not
gives me
having a clear
goose.
message, yeah, is
Yeah.
sabotaging your success.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it
It
gives
gives
me
you
it, it,
goosebumps.
it gives me goosebumps thinking like I'm standing on a stage and explaining something about my product or service or my new startup, and people are excited to invest into my product or services at the event. How cool is
Yeah,
that?
I know. That was incredible. It was absolutely outstanding. Yes, and later we shot videos, so he has videos to put on his website and his social media. And in fact, Intel invested in his company because after he got the media training, he went and spoke at some large conferences. And because the message was nailed, he
Mm,
got Intel and some other big players to invest in his company. So what you're missing could just be the right words to the right people at the right time.
definitely, definitely. Couldn't agree more with that.
And
Yeah.
did you want me to share the story about my brother? That's a completely different kind of a story.
Definitely. And I wanted to ask you, I'm actually eager to learn more about you as a person. Like, can you take us back to your roots? Share with our listeners about your upbringing, your childhood. How did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become the visionary entrepreneur you are today? And were there any key influences, like the book we read, all of us read, like the Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of influences around you while you were growing up, that played a significant role in your entrepreneurial spirit?
Well, I love this question. So, one of the key influences in my life were my parents. My father was a professor at a university. He was actually chairman of the Department of Agricultural Economics at the University of British Columbia. And my mother was actually a genius. She was super, super smart, but she was ahead of her time. That was before the time where women, could have academic roles of any significance. She was born in 1933.
Mm.
One job she applied for, they said she was by far the best candidate, but she was just going to get pregnant and have kids, so they weren't going to offer her the job. So she was a little, had a chip on her shoulder about that. But what my childhood was like was at the dinner table, there was a blackboard and there was a dictionary and there was an encyclopedia and the Atlas of the World. And so it was like always challenging to, okay, let's take a deeper dive into that. So I was constantly being educated. But the thing that stood out to me the most is we would brainstorm business ideas at the dinner table all the time. I must have had like thousands of $1 million ideas. So really, like, even as a teenager, got a love of brainstorming business ideas. Now, most of those ideas we didn't launch, but
Mm.
my whole family are entrepreneurs. My younger brother has a business. My older brother has a business. I think he's got an 8 or 9-figure business now. He's considering going public. He has over 100 employees, and he's got locations around the world. He's got locations in Canada, in the United States, and France. So he's certainly taken the entrepreneurship to the whole next level. But I fell in love with helping other people nail their business and nail their message. There's a part of me that just loves to empower others. And it kind of hurts my heart when I see somebody capable and competent and they're just missing the right words. And I love to help
Mm.
them with that.
Awesome. Great stuff. And would you be able to navigate towards your brother's story at this point, or we are too early?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
older brother is Dr. Calvin Winter, and he's probably like many of the founders here, super, super smart. He's got a PhD in physics and in engineering, and he speaks 5 languages. So he's super, super smart. Um, but he comes to me when he wants the right message, which is fun. But one of the things I love to share with people is another key that will really help you succeed is kind of surprising. And that surprising key is to have the attitude of being a giver. So
Mm.
my older brother, Calvin Winter, he is always giving without considering getting anything back. And when we show up with that energy, it's an energy of prosperity, it's an energy of contribution, and you can contribute very easily. You could leave a video review for this podcast, to help Ash. It will take 5 seconds, 30 seconds. And it's a way for you to show up as somebody who's giving.
Hmm.
And when we show up that way, without expectation, without a transactional energy, but an energy of generosity, it's amazing what happens. So my older brother, who's always giving, he's, giving away skis, he's giving away free training, he helps at the local high school, he's always helping everybody. I went to a recent family reunion. He gave all of his grandkids like a big check each, but he's the most wealthy person in our family. And I think it is not um, disconnected from him having that attitude of giving. So I invite everybody who's listening, do a kindness for others and without expectation of any return, but just notice how the universe supports you. And I encourage you, maybe leave a review, maybe a video review or even a text review for this podcast. Help Ash out. He's here trying to help you. So, that go-giver attitude will pay back, in my experience, 10x or
Hmm.
100x. What about you,
Definitely.
Ash? What do you think?
No, I totally agree with you. I think when I started giving more than what I was trying to gain back, that's when I realized that you don't even have to ask. People will come back to you, not the same people you're giving to, but maybe some
Yes.
other people, just because this universe has this strange way to bring this energy back to you, which I don't
Yeah.
understand. I'm not smart enough for that, but it works in
It
some
does.
ways,
It's
right?
amazing, right? It's amazing. And I know, like, as a founder, maybe the listeners have got a startup. Maybe they're like, I don't have enough cash. I don't have enough team. I don't have, and they can be easily caught up in the energy of not enoughness. But honestly, if you have the time and the interest to listen to this podcast, you've got Wi-Fi connection, you've got a smartphone or a computer. Really, you're probably richer than 90% of the entire planet or 95% of the planet. A little bit of gratitude goes a long way. And even just giving a smile to your neighbor or letting the person who cuts you off in traffic have a free pass and not being,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how that pays off. And also bringing it full circle to speaking. So many people that I coach and I work with, they're very anxious about public speaking. Public speaking is the biggest fear people
Mm,
have, right? But the solution is to be focused on how can I contribute to the listener? Because when you
mm,
show up, as Ash and I are right now, with the intention of making a difference, to make this time the most valuable time that you spent today listening to this, that energy makes it easy not to be anxious or be afraid. So when you're speaking, whether it's on a podcast or on a stage, or you're speaking up at an important meeting, or even you're speaking up one-on-one with an important client, show up with that energy of I'm intending to make a difference rather than what can I get? And you'd
mm.
be amazed how much better it goes.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk more about where the story began. $1 million messaging workshop courses, which you provide to entrepreneurs and founders. Let's talk about where the story actually started from. Where did the idea of this particular engagement came from, and what was the trigger to when you started it?
I think entrepreneurs solve problems at a profit. So anytime I notice that people are struggling with a problem, if it's a problem that I have overcome, then I think about, well, maybe I could help them with that problem. So when I looked over the course of my entire life, I've launched multiple businesses. In my 20s, launched businesses, actually exited my first business in my 20s. I've exited 3 businesses and built several 7-figure businesses, from yacht sales to TV and film production to coach training to now, having um, a communication media and publishing company called Same Page Publishing. And so like people look at me and go like, those don't all go together. What's the common thread? And I realized the common thread in success in each of these industries, different industries, was having a clear, compelling message
Mm,
and seeking to provide more value and solve more problems than others. So
mm,
anytime I see a problem, I see, oh, can I solve it? And that gives me a lot of joy. But that's what we all do. We solve problems. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes founders can make is working on something that you're excited about, but nobody has that problem. You want to solve a big, sticky problem. So, for example, one of the things I'm doing now, I help people with their $1 million message. And then I also help them reach the media and get their message, get a spotlight on their message and reach, thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people within just a couple of months. So we do like a quick start on their authority and their media outreach. And then people who want even more authority, stick with me to write a book, because a book is a legacy piece. But on the other hand, once you've nailed your message, you can pitch to raise capital, you can get on podcasts, you can speak from the stage, you can, in one-on-one meetings or networking, be much more effective. So a lot of people wanted that fast start. So I created that fast start program for founders. And not all of them want to write a book. Not everybody wants to write a book, although I love helping people with books, and 80% of people do want to write a book. But I think 100% of founders want to get their message out more quickly and effectively.
Definitely. And I still remember when we were on our intro call, you shared this, and I was like, wow, 20,000 media outreach within few months. That is quite a lot. Would you be able to uncover some secrets here with our founders? Like, how do you actually do that? How do you help founders spreading the word with all these media outlets?
What's so joyful? Well, firstly, we take a deep dive into what are they trying to do? What is their business? What are their goals? What is their cash flow? What are the tipping points? Because oftentimes people are trying to do too much and their message gets really muddy. I look for, what are the tipping points, what would really make a difference, and then distill their message down really clearly. And then depending on, where they're at. For example, one of my clients, Bill Shady, he's got a company that's um, philanthropic nonprofit helping people with water. So I'm like, I gave a shout out to him on a recent video that was launched on Strategic Basics, put a link to his website, those just kind of bonuses, but already that will reach several thousand people, probably 10,000 people. Then also we're going back and forth to try to get his message nailed. I really encourage people to have at least 12 short videos on LinkedIn or on your YouTube channel. So I'm helping him create each one of those short videos. He will say some of them and I'll coach him to create that content. But we can also do quite a beautiful job on his behalf to make it easy for him, to add the B-roll and have, kind of a professional newscaster read it out. And then towards the end of the process, I will interview him, because I'm very comfortable, like you are, Ash, interviewing people, and that gives them a longer period of time to share the message, like why is he doing this? What does he matter? How can people connect? All the things that you're asking me, basically,
Hmm.
and a link to his website. And that video will reach probably at least 20,000 people. And then after that, we take care of booking him on podcasts so that we make sure that he's got his sound bites down, that he's going to impress people like you, Ash, so that he shows up prepared with clear sound bites and is a great guest. And so very quickly, you could probably reach 100,000 people or more. And you get also the surprising benefit that most people don't even think about is it's not just about reaching thousands of people. It's about getting so confident with your message that you can say it at a drop of a hat. And then everything just flows because you're a powerhouse. So that's my goal, is to help all my clients become the powerhouse that I know they can be.
Definitely, definitely. And thanks for sharing this, because one of the biggest challenge, and you mentioned this before, like, try to solve the real world problem where a lot of people are looking solution for it, right? And you when you mentioned that, my brain was like bobbling with all these questions with founders send me through LinkedIn, through Instagram, and all these places, right? One of the biggest challenge in founders life is not coming up with a good idea or producing a good service or product. It is gaining the eyeballs and getting the first seed round clear, first
Exactly.
investment, right? Let's say, for example, if a founder comes to you and say, okay, or I heard your podcast with Ash. I am so impressed with your online identity. I want to join your, course, your cohort. What are the step-by-step process you will take that founder through your program, and how do you help them out to raise more funds? Do you have like a big network of VCs in your pocket? Just joking.
Well, I live in Los Angeles now. I used to live in the San Francisco area where I was more connected with the VCs. But now I
Yeah,
actually help people pitch their projects for film and television, because I
mhm,
have a background in film and television, so I like to do that.
got it.
So How I realized during COVID, I'll tell you a little story here. I realized
Hmm.
during COVID that I had just done an event when COVID was announced, March 2020. I just did a big event. I'm like, I love doing events. I'm going to keep doing 3 events a year. And then COVID was announced. I'm like, change the plans. And then I recommend everybody does the 80/20 rule. So I did the 80/20 rule, and I realized that 80% of my revenue was coming from 20% of my clients. And so then I just doubled down on serving the people who are really committed to making a difference, who are really, in the process of launching 7, 8, or 9-figure companies. I have one client now who's selling his company for over $100 million. So how I work with people is you don't join a big group and have to listen to a bunch of Zoom calls that may or may not apply to you. I work with people one-on-one. We take a deep dive into whatever their biggest problem is, and we solve it. Boom, 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 boom. So their biggest issue might be what you just said, Ash. People often are trying to do too many things. They haven't identified the highest leverage point. So the 80/20 rule applies to everything. So of all of the things that you're considering doing with your company, there's going to be 20% of those things that will bring you 80% of the revenue. But I like to even challenge people to do the math twice. So of that top 20% that brings you 80% of your revenue or your satisfaction or your momentum, there's 20% of that 20%. 4% of your activities will bring you 64% or the bulk of your revenue. So what I like to do with founders is really lean into what is that 4%? Let's message that 4%. Let's get you going quickly. And once people have their message nailed, then the next step of how to pitch it becomes very obvious and very clear. And it depends, where in the world they are. If they're in the UK, it would be slightly different than if they're in San Francisco or New York or Los Angeles. And we can certainly help them go from there. But one of the things that is super important is you want to have authority online. So I love podcasts because podcasts like yours, Ash, are great. They have a long tail. They sit online. So I want all of my founders and entrepreneurs and experts to have a whole bunch of media proving that their concept works. And so then we can also slice and dice, or they can slice and dice an hour or half-hour podcast into multiple pieces of 30-second to 5-minute video. Opus Clips is great to do that, for example. And so what we want to do is we want to really create a movement for each founder. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
No, it does. It does. And is there any specific stages the founders have to go through once they are registered with you? For example, do they have to come to Los Angeles or San Francisco where your events are happening, or you do everything digitally? And um, is there like any specific milestones in the program which the listeners should be aware of?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Um, I do everything on Zoom because my clients are, spread across the planet. Most of them are in the United States, but most people find it's more convenient to just jump on Zoom. Then I often do go to media events and I invite my clients to join me so that we can pitch their projects for TV or film, or I can pitch their projects even if they're not there because I'm in Los Angeles and that's, fairly straightforward. The milestones, because I work with VIP founders, each one has their individual unique milestones. So there's nothing about this that is generic. It's all tailored to exactly what they specifically need. So, I mean, if
Indeed.
people are interested, they can go to bookcall.biz, and they can book a call with me. And be sure to mention that you heard me on the Ash's podcast. You can just, put Ash podcast in the notes, and then I'll know that you came from Ash because we want to know
There you
where you
go.
came from and where you heard
There
me.
you go. There you go. Great stuff. Cool.
So,
So,
but we're
yeah.
always looking to hit milestones that will make a difference, whether it's raising capital, getting the pitch deck ready, getting
Mhm.
the media momentum, getting thousands of views, launching their YouTube channel, whatever the case may be, and then listing that 4% of contacts who might be able to invest $1 million, rather than going for the 100% of contacts who might donate $100 each. So I am always looking for the strategic leverage.
Definitely, definitely. So let's go towards the messaging part, which is again one of the most important part in founders' life, right? I have never met a founder who have became successful before figuring out the messaging part
Yeah,
of the solution or
exactly.
service, right? Do you follow a particular kind of blueprint or templating, or do you have a tool for our founders to try on your, platform where they can supply the information to the tool about like what kind of product or service they're building, and that tool helps them to actually not create a proper strategic message, but at least give them a direction towards it.
There's two tools that I think I can explain quickly enough so that people
Hmm.
can try them out and practice them right away. But I just want to say first that most people don't understand that communication is very much like engineering. Like you
Mm,
said, Ash, there actually are blueprints, there are templates, there's structure to communication. And once you understand the hidden structure, then you can put your story or your client's story on top of it and you're good to go. So I love to teach people the structures, and there's various structures in the book Turn Words into Wealth. And yes, I do work through all of these structures with my clients on a one-on-one basis, but I can share two that are super easy, I think, to understand so that the listeners can right away take advantage. So one of the structures I love is the myth bust. So the neuroscience of communication, you want to grab people's attention and then you want to spin it. And then they're going to be, what? And then they're really going to listen. So you want to take a common myth that applies to your product, your service, or your industry, and then exactly say that the opposite is true. And then people will be like, well, but
would
you,
you be able to give an example to
yeah.
the listeners? Yeah.
So let me see a good example. You could take almost anything. All right. So for example, um, eh, I'm not sure how much you charge your clients, but let's just say, um, it's too expensive. That's the common myth. People like, oh,
Yeah.
it's too expensive.
UK has one of the biggest, I face this one of the biggest challenge here in London to hire talented people. I have to pay 10 to 15% of their yearly salary to the recruitment agencies to hire talented people. How do we get
Yeah.
the message for that? Yeah.
So you could have a myth bust there and just say it's too expensive not to hire somebody talented. Because if you cheap out on hiring somebody who is not at the top of their game, who's not a five-star employee, you're going to pay for it every day in them delivering subpar work. You're going to pay
Mm,
for it every day in them not representing your brand correctly. You're going to pay for it every day in them bringing down the caliber of the rest of the members on your team because they're like, oh, well, John is slacking off, so I guess I can too. So that would
mm,
be an example of a pattern interrupt. It's too expensive to hire top talent. It's too expensive not to hire
to
top
hire
talent.
that
And then you
talent.
give the
Yeah.
reasons why. So a
Mm,
myth bust is one of the fastest way to grab people's attention. And so make a list of the top 5 to 10 objections that people say. Or, for example, I can't afford to get help with my book launch.
mm.
Well, you can't afford not to get help with your book launch because if you spend all that time writing your book and then you don't put any effort into launching it, the result could reduce the value of your brand instead of
Hmm.
building your brand and building your momentum. So, for example, all my clients become best-selling award-winning authors. Their books have lots of reviews. We put effort and energy into the book launch. So that
Mm.
would be another example. I don't know if you have one common myth you want to share that we can bust right now,
Oh,
Ash?
yeah. One of the myths I think we have in the founders world is founders life is so glorious. Once you're a founder, you get the investment, you exit with millions, and then it's Ferrari, Lamborghini, yachts, and everything. So let's bust that.
All right. So the founder's life is so glorious. The myth bust would be the founder's life is not so glorious. But then you would say, unless XYZ, because you want to leave people
Mm,
with something positive.
mm,
So I could say that, the myth is that the founder's life is glorious. The fact is that most founders' lives are a struggle unless they nail their $1 million message, get the
mm.
funding, and get the launch that they deserve. Something like that.
Indeed.
So the
Perfect.
myth bust, we gave you 3 examples, but I invite people to make a list of maybe 20 things that people say commonly, and then don't go on a long rant. Immediately bust it. So say the myth and then bust it. So the example was, it's too expensive. It's not too expensive. That's an example. All right. So there's one example. Another example I can share here really quickly is the hero's journey. My background's in film and television. I think most people watch movies. Almost every movie has this
Mm,
hero's journey story structure. I encourage everybody to follow this story structure because you can use it for yourself, for your business, for your clients. So the story structure sounds like an upside down top hat. It sounds like you could start with a challenge or you could start with high, and then you go challenge, challenge, challenge. And then the turning point is whatever you're selling. And then you want to go straight up. It's kind of the holy grail. So if you think of um, any of the heroic movies from Indiana Jones to Star Wars, it has this kind of a structure. So an example, let's see if I can do a quick example for publishing. So it could sound like, for many years, I wanted to make a bigger difference to people, and I struggled to do so one-on-one. I struggled to do so in my small events with 50 to 100 people, and I felt like there was so many more people who needed the messaging formulas that I had. So after trying to reach people one-on-one and trying to reach people in small events and working with people in Zoom, I've published the book Turn Words into Wealth, and that changed everything, because after I published the book Turn Words into Wealth, and it became Outstanding Nonfiction Book of the Year, and then I went on podcasts, and it just changed everything. It made it easy and effortless for me to reach thousands or even millions of people, because I create the book once, and it's no effort for me for people to read it as many times as they like, or as many people around the world. I even give the book away for free at turnwordsintowealth.com, and it's opened up so many opportunities to speak on podcasts, on radio, on TV. And the book serves as a lead magnet. It attracts people who want $1 million message, and it repels people who don't like what I'm up to. So it's a simple filtering mechanism. And surprisingly, that book has probably generated 7 figures for me, not from book sales, but from attracting clients.
definitely. And you have to get your funnel sorted from the top level, where you inform people about your service. That's how you educate them. That's how you make them a hot lead, and then ultimately your customer. And this is a flow which all of us been trying to speak about in different scenarios. For example, ClickFunnels founder speaks about it in the ClickFunnels events. Alex Hermosi talks about it with his $100 million lead generation book. Right, he just became world's most sold bookseller with the help of social media last week or something.
Yeah, that was an
Uh,
amazing launch.
yeah,
I watched that. 3
yeah,
million books sold independently through his book launch and his
yeah.
direct sales. I
Some
think
people are comparing
that's
it with
a
J.K.
record.
Rowling. I wouldn't believe that, because J.K. Rowling's book has been sold for at least $10, I'm guessing, each copy. And, you know,
J.K. Rowling has a whole empire, and I think that book sale is a spike, probably
mm,
not to be repeated, where J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter series, went
yeah.
on to have, I don't know, Universal Studios events and wands and all kinds of merchandise. The book launch, you could get a book for free from Alex Hormozy if you covered shipping, which is like $9.95, I believe he charged.
Mm,
So if he ordered the books in bulk, he would have made a tiny profit
yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that. But other people bought the book for, I think, $29.95, so about
Yeah. Yeah.
$30 plus the shipping. So that would be $40. So that is very profitable. And then he had an upsell for $6,000 approximately. You could donate 200 books to other people, and you got all these things. So he
Mm,
certainly did a brilliant book launch. I mean, to get on the New York Times bestseller list, you only need to sell between 5,000 and 20,000 books in 1 week. So to
mm.
sell 3 million books in a week is
Wow.
amazing. But he probably won't be eligible for the New York Times list because you have to be widely distributed. It can't be
Mm,
sold
yeah.
directly. But
Yeah.
it certainly was a phenomenal success.
Even. Yeah.
I bought his book.
Definitely.
I'm looking forward
Did
to
you?
reading it. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I'm gonna get it on my Kindle. Kindle, I love. So yeah, maybe that's the solution I have. Great. So Aurora, thank you so much for sharing this. We have another section on our podcast which is called a lightning round. But before going into the lightning round, I want to ask you something personal. Throughout your journey and experiences, there must have been valuable lessons learned, right? If you don't mind sharing, could you reflect on your experiences and tell us about one mistake or a setback that you encountered along the way that you now consider not a regret, but sort of like a lesson learned for future? And like additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on this experience?
Oh, so many missteps I could choose from, honestly, Ash. I think the one that would be most useful for me to share is every time I launch a different business, and I don't know, I've had 6 or 7 by now, I'm so excited about it, I never think I'm gonna sell it. It's just not on my bandwidth, on my radar, and while I've sold 3 of my businesses, I think it was unwise not to consider the possibility of the exit strategy at the
Mm,
beginning. So I know
mm,
most founders don't necessarily make that mistake, but if you are really passionate about what you're doing right now, perhaps you're not thinking about the exit strategy at all. And sometimes what happened with me in one case in particular, I really loved this business. I was dedicated to changing the world. And then I kind of ran out of steam. And so I
mm,
only thought about selling that business after I was kind of done with it. It was sort of like a breakup.
mm.
You really want to tell your partner before you've run out of steam that, some
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
need to be fixed and maybe it can be salvaged. But if you tell them I'm done when you're really like on fumes, it's really over. So anyway, I did actually sell that business, shockingly, but
Mm.
I did make the error of assuming that my passion would last forever. So that's a tip. What about you, Ash? Is there something that you
Um,
regret that?
I think no, as I mentioned in your book, I just went halfway through, but I think from my experience, I would definitely say do not start something which you're not passionate about. I mean, I
Mhm.
know that you have to do this research, that you're solving a problem, but what happens is today's world, it's not just about solving the problem. It is also about spreading the word because founder has to do everything, especially with the AI world. A lot of solopreneur companies are coming, right? People are managing marketing, lead generation, cold calling, conversion with the customer, sales, providing of the service, and after sales support. Everything one person, right?
Yeah,
So
one
that's
person and
service
an AI
business.
team.
Yeah, and the AI team, and if you're starting something which you're not passionate about, excuse me, uh, then what happens is you run out of fuel, which you just mentioned about the business, and what happened afterwards is you think, oh, it's not making me enough money to survive, so let me go to something else. Whereas if you're passionate about something, so for example, Founders Podcast, I am passionate about talking to people. I don't do this to make money at all, and I get to connect with amazing people around the world
Mhm.
like yourself. The other day I met a guy from Australia who has a software to manage horses. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it's $1 million business. I got connected with a person
Wow.
in Thailand who helped people in US to get rid of their $100,000 debt with
Wow.
legal ways. So all these different mindset and knowledge and the people through the internet I'm connecting just because I'm passionate about talking with founders,
That's
and
so cool.
that's what my advice would be, if you ask me. Great. So Aurora, let's move to our lightning round then.
Let me just say
I've
one
got
more
yeah.
quick thing, which is that I really want people to embrace and lean into how AI can help you, but I want to super yellow highlight that your unique human story is more valuable than ever.
Mm.
Your story really matters.
Indeed,
Okay, lightning
definitely.
round.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just to add into that, I tried to do stand-up comedy for multiple times and I failed. And the only time I was successful in a church in a very small event is because I started talking about my journey to move from an Asian country to UK and how I find funny people crossing the roads on a zebra crossing instead of normal roads. So, personal story is the best. So go with that. Great stuff. Great, Rora. Um, what are the top three strategies to pinpoint your messaging in 2025?
Well, firstly, take a big step backwards and look at where is the profit. For example, one of my clients is a dentist, and she was doing the same advertising as other dentists, the free exam or $100 off or something like that. And she was getting, clients that would have a teeth cleaning or something just for several $100s. But when I worked with her, I leaned into, well, what is the biggest value client? And it quickly became apparent that she actually had the skill, she had advanced skills, and that clients over 40 could spend 10 or 20 or even $40,000.
Mm,
So I helped her write a book that would attract that client. So it's called Keys to a Healthy Life After 40. Sorry, Keys to a Healthy Smile After 40.
mhm,
And, 7 different ways to have a beautiful smile. And she gives that to her clients as a referral mechanism. And what
mm,
happened with that business is it went from 1.5 to $6 million because of that clever focus on where is the leverage. So the leverage, it wasn't about just marketing more or doing the same as everybody else. It was observing that she had the talent and the skill and that she had existing patients that were worth, 100 times more than the average patient. So that is the first step really in messaging, is to be strategic about where is the leverage point, right?
mm,
Okay, and then once you've identified, in her case, it was um, people who wanted a healthy smile or a beautiful smile after 40, then you want to create messages that fit and attract that ideal client. So
mm,
what are the problems that they're dealing with? What is, you want to pain, agitate, solve? That's the basic recipe on that. So what is the pain that that specific person is having? What are the consequences of that pain? Maybe they're afraid of their smile. Maybe they don't speak up in meetings. Maybe they don't shoot videos. Maybe they can't get promoted. Maybe they don't feel like they can date. Like, you want to get clear on what are the agitation points, and then you want to give your solution. In that little example, there could be different short videos for Keys to a Healthy Smile After 40 when you want to get back in the dating market. Maybe you're freshly
mm,
divorced. Keys to a Healthy Smile After 40 when you want to be a public speaker and you want to step up as a leader. That could be a separate video, a separate message, but all of the messages, well, 80% of the messages should really focus on that 20% or even 4% of ideal outcome. So we want to be
mm.
strategic about it. Does that make sense?
Indeed, it does, definitely. Uh, my next question was around a book. So, what book would you recommend to our audience and why? Let me first recommend one. Is this? This is one I recommend. Now, let's hear from you which one you recommend.
He just held up my book to Turn Words into Wealth. Oh, so many books to recommend. Actually, for a founder audience, I really like the book Pitch Anything
Mm,
by
mm,
Oren Klaff. Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. One of the things that stood out to me from reading that book was so many times he was like down to $10.17 in his bank account, but the next meeting generated hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And it was because of the way he spoke. One of the key things that he emphasizes in his book, Pitch Anything, is that framing is decisive. So
mhm,
even before you open your mouth, the framing matters, which is one of the reasons I think it's really important to have authority. That authority can come from being a published author, mail them the book before your meeting. It can come from appearing on a podcast like Ash's podcast, send them a link to the podcast before your meeting. You can have local authority. So in other words, you could be meeting with a billionaire who hangs out with Richard Branson or Elon Musk, but you can have local authority with your area of expertise so that in that meeting, you have equal or even perhaps higher status, but at least equal status to the person that you're meeting with. it can change the outcome of the meeting decisively. You don't want to show up with no status. So whatever you can do, whether it's being on podcasts, speaking on stages, having a book, having awards, all of these things will help you have local status. And he gives an example of the maitre d' at a French restaurant. So the maitre d' at a French restaurant actually has more status than the people that he's seating at the table, even if it's Elon Musk or Richard Branson, when he's offering the wine, right? Because this is his domain. So don't underestimate that in your specific domain, you can have power, and that status or power or authority or leadership or whatever is the right flavor of word in your case makes a huge difference to that.
Definitely, definitely. I'm gonna add that into my Kindle reading list.
Okay.
Pitch anything. Yeah, definitely. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Grit.
Mm,
You gotta stick with it. I love you highlighted the importance of passion earlier, and I just want to yellow highlight grit.
mhm,
You gotta stick with it. You know, so many people give up just before the doors open, just before the success. So I think grit, there's a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth that you could
mhm,
add to your reading list if you like, but I think everybody knows what I mean by grit. So the difference between, you know, the billionaires or the multimillionaires and the people who are struggling can just be persistent. So stick with it.
mm, definitely, definitely. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
I think the most useful thing I could say here, because there's a bunch of things I do, is blocking off time.
Mm, time management.
So I start the day, I do a little journaling, I do a little meditating, and then I usually write for 90-minute block. And then I usually go to the gym. So I have a rhythm. So I think it's very easy to let your time be scattered by social media, by checking emails. And before you know it, you haven't done anything that requires deep thinking. So I manage that for myself. I'm a morning person. So usually 90 minutes on my most important creative project. I've been writing my fantasy series, Magic Mystery in the Multiverse, which just came out as a Reader's Choice Award-winning book or series of books, so that's kind of cool. And then oftentimes I'm on a roll, so I'll give myself another 90-minute block after having a cup of coffee or walking around for a little bit. And I think this habit of blocking off 90 minutes of time so that you can have deep thinking and do your most important, most creative work is a really great productivity hack.
Yeah, definitely. And there are studies backing this up. Harvard did a study about time capsuling your day, and it doubles or triples your productivity every day. So yeah, you're
I
spot
think
on
it's
that.
5x actually, because you get into
No.
flow. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
great. Next question. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Well, my crazy business idea, I have a new YouTube channel called Strategic Basics. You might be able to see the picture in the background there. And what I'm actually doing is I'm creating a book. The book might be called Strategic Story Selling. I'm still, considering the title. It might not be Strategic Basics. It'll be Strategic something. And my crazy idea is a video book. So I have the channel just got over 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, and most of the episodes could be like a chapter in the book. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool? Like, people love audiobooks. What about video books? Video books is the
Hmm.
next phase. This could be a completely crazy idea, but I like crazy ideas, and when I have one, I go for it, and I'm actually doing it. So eventually, the book will come out, and you'll be able to read the book, but you'll also be able to click and watch the
And
video
watch the book. Yeah.
and watch the book. I haven't heard of anybody doing that. So that's my crazy fun idea.
Awesome. Great stuff. And last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Hmm. Interesting or fun fact. Well, I love playing pickleball. So that's a
Hmm.
little fun fact. How about you? Are you a pickleball player?
No, I've seen people playing it. Um, yeah, I think I can't. I'll be terrible doing that.
Well, it's kind of fun once you get into it. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure it is. Great, Aurora. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking the last few years of building this business and helping others. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to know you or have a question, what's the best way to do it?
Thanks. It's been such a pleasure being on your podcast, Ash. Well, they can get the gift of the book, Turn Words into Wealth, at turnwordsintowealth.com. They'll get the ebook absolutely for free. And if they'd like to take a deeper dive, they can go to aurorawinter.com or samepagepublishing.com. They can see a little bit more about what I'm up to, and they can get a business breakthrough call if they'd like at bookcall.biz, and then we'll jump on a call and see if I can help them. So bookcall.biz is the link, but you'll find that on Same Page Publishing or aurorawinter.com. But hey, Ash, this has been really fun. Thanks so much for featuring me on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Thank you.